When you type a prompt into a chatbot and watch the words scroll across the screen, it creates a powerful illusion. It feels as if a machine is actively thinking, reading your words, weighing them, and composing a unique reply. But this behavior relies on a mathematical trick invented over a century ago. Long before the first computer existed, the logic that powers modern artificial intelligence had already been mapped out on paper. This math was a weapon in a personal feud. It was built by a Russian mathematician who was so angry at a colleague that he dedicated his career to winning a petty academic argument. To see how our modern technology really works, we have to look back at a forgotten theological dispute about the nature of the human soul. In 1905, Russia was a country in chaos. It was fractured by a failing war and violent revolutions in the streets. But inside the Imperial Academy of Sciences, two mathematicians were locked in a bitter fight over a question completely disconnected from the revolution outside. The first was Pavel Nekrasov. He was a priest and a mathematician who believed he could use numbers to prove God's design. He argued that the laws of probability were proof that humans have free will. Nekrasov's logic was that for statistical averages to work, every event must be completely independent, meaning one choice has no connection to the next. He pictured the world like a jar of loose marbles. If you drop one marble, it has zero physical effect on where the next marble lands. Nekrasov claimed that because human behavior is statistically predictable, our individual choices must be just as independent and free. This idea infuriated Andrey Markov. He was a fierce atheist who had no patience for using mathematics to prove the existence of a soul. Markov was so insulted by the priest's attempt to smuggle theology into science that he decided to mathematically destroy Nekrasov's argument. Markov needed to prove that probability works even when events are strictly connected. He needed a real-world example of a system where every step depends on the one before it. For his data, he chose a masterpiece of romantic literature, Alexander Pushkin's poem Eugene Onegin. He didn't read the poem for the story. Instead, he took the first 20,000 letters and stripped away every space and comma to create an unbroken chain of text. For weeks, he hand-counted exactly how often a vowel followed a consonant and how often two vowels appeared in a row. Markov had turned a simple love poem into the first large-scale dataset for what we now call dependent probability. His findings were clear. The letters were not independent, like loose marbles. They were deeply connected. In the Russian language, a vowel is much more likely to follow a consonant than another vowel. Even though each letter was heavily influenced by the one before it, the overall frequency of vowels still settled into a stable, predictable average. You didn't need free will for the math to work. He called this elegant mathematical discovery a chain. In this system, the next state only depends on the current state. It only needs to remember one step back to take one step forward. Instead of independent marbles, Markov visualized math as interlocking links. Each new link in the chain is held in place and positioned entirely by the link it just snapped onto. Andrey Markov had finally won the argument. He proved that statistical regularity doesn't require independence, causing the priest's theological theory to collapse on a mathematical technicality. When Markov presented his findings in 1913, his audience was thinking about abstract math and theology. No one in that room could have imagined a machine that processes language. Markov died in 1922, during the early years of the Soviet era. He passed away decades before the first electronic computer was ever turned on. But today, researchers have formally confirmed that our most successful artificial intelligence models operate on this exact same 100-year-old logic. The engine that allows tools like GPT-4 to generate text is a Markov chain, calculating its way through sequences of word fragments. When an AI generates a response, it builds the sentence one piece at a time. We can use Markov's chain analogy to see how this works, with words instead of letters. The AI looks at the current state, calculating the most likely next word. It snaps that word onto the chain, then repeats the process. This is the same process Markov performed by hand with a poem. The AI simply does it at a massive scale, processing billions of word associations across the internet in a fraction of a second. A priest's search for God in the numbers drove an atheist to count the letters in a love poem, and in the process, they accidentally handed us the mathematical tool that makes artificial intelligence possible.